we were doing our first kind of like sessions with Pharrell, and he was like, it's not that I haven't seen the colors, it's not that I haven't seen,
Right.
the style before.
Yeah.
I've just never seen it done like this.
Mm.
And if you can make people feel that time and time again, like they won't be able to look away. And I think that's one of the hallmarks that Doodles really brings to the world. And our art, the way we craft tweets, the way we engage our community, all of that stuff is like a statement about what we think and what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the community really feels that.
Today's guest is Julian Holguin, the CEO of Doodles. Doodles is one of the most popular NFT collections out there, but it's not just an NFT collection. They've expanded the brand beyond that and partnered with companies like McDonald's, Rubik's Cube, Adidas, Arizona Iced Tea, PlayStation. I wrote these things down, so I'm reading it off a list to name a few. And if you've gotten a coffee at McDonald's recently, you might have gotten the special McCafe X Doodles collab that they're doing. I actually wanted to go to McDonald's this morning and get it, but, I ran out of time. I'm excited to have Julian on the show today and talk all about Doodles, its expansion, and more. Julian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you, and Happy New Year. This episode is on January 2nd. So you are the first guest of 2025.
All right, good stuff. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year.
Amazing. To start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in this space?
Yeah, sure. Previous to joining Doodles, I was the president of Billboard, the music company. And before that, just had a long career in media and entertainment. But I had gotten to Billboard at a time where media was changing a lot. It was consolidating. There were new ways of distributing media. There were new ways of monetizing media. Social media, specifically, the platforms were getting a really big grip on the way content was distributed and the types of media companies that were making money. And it created a lot of new opportunity in the space while kind of, obviously creating holes in a lot of traditional media. And what it forced me to do at Billboard was really think of new ways to bring the brand to the world and really lean into technology and distribution and new formats of storytelling to engage audiences and ultimately monetize the company. That is ultimately that time at Billboard, kind of doing that exercise and bringing the brand to different verticals and channels, is ultimately what led me to Web3 after becoming familiar with NBA Top Shot and the product that they were building and how this legacy IP could really create like a new gamified collecting experience that was something that they hadn't done before, like digital games, mobile games that was already prevalent. But the fact that they were doing it through NFTs and on-chain transactions was so fascinating to me, and they were bringing a new kind of product to market. So I just started to research and network and try and build out our own products at Billboard that were similar, to that, but also kind of had our own spin. And, that is kind of what sent me down the rabbit hole. And I frankly have just never been able to get out. It's been a pretty wild world. And, once you really kind of like understand what this technology is and, what the culture represents, it's really hard to think about doing it the old way ever again, because you're just so excited about all the opportunities and possibilities that this technology and this space can bring to traditional media and, and just kind of a new way of building brands on the internet. It's been very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Before we get into like everything Doodles, given that you were at Billboard, do you feel like that side of the industry is like actually starting to adopt Web3 technology, or they're just not there yet, or maybe people don't even get it? I feel like there are people who definitely get it. And like you, for example, you saw the value in it. You wanted to like dive into it. But then maybe if you go and present it, even if you're the president of the company, other people might be like, this guy's crazy, or I don't see the value. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was, people definitely get it. But the case for really investing in it now is very different than it was in 2021 and early 2022, because it was a very easy decision for a lot of these big companies to make. Boards understood why teams were suggesting really leaning into this space, because it was a massive revenue opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that is ultimately the thing that dominated the conversation. The price of things, how much money you could make on things. And unfortunately, it takes a little more work now to generate that kind of revenue, or fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to
Mm-hmm.
look at it. But at the end of the day, to convince a board that you should be disrupting yourself for something that kind of pales in comparison to the revenues and the, the audience metrics that you get on other platforms, it's just a much tougher sell now. So what you're seeing is brands, media companies, like everybody has taken a little bit of a back seat. There are some that still do things here and there. What we've been able to do is really kind of work with some of these bigger companies to do tests and to learn a little bit more about the space through activating with us, who is like kind of in it every single day, living and breathing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think gradually you're going to see the, the rest of the world kind of come back in, but it's not going to be the mania that I believe it was before. I think it's going to be a little bit more thoughtful, and I think you're just going to see a little bit more quality in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's better because it's more constructive and, like you said, thoughtful. So Billboard to Doodles, what was that decision like, transition? Why Doodles?
It wasn't like I'm going into Web3 full time just because, right? Like it really was kind of Doodles, or at the time, nothing. I don't know if my mind would have changed. But the space was very interesting to me, but I always believed in my core that the thing that would sustain would be really strong brands. And I just, in being a collector myself and being in the space myself, like nothing drew me to anything like the Doodles art. So after having met Burnt Toast, I think we met at he was doing a gallery show in Los Angeles with Interscope Records, and we met at that event, and that was the first time we spoke. And I had met a couple of the founders even before that, but it was just so clear that he had a creative vision, and he was so like he loved leaning into technology even before starting Doodles. He was just very he kind of really came up on Instagram and doing work with with brands, with like he's just done incredible work in his career. And that was really the thing that drew me. It was the art, it was the creative vision. And then after kind of learning more of like the product vision and the things that the other co-founders thought were possible with the brand, it just felt very like, okay, there's a real point of view here. It's not just a money grab like so much else in this space so clearly is. Like there's really something here. And after having some conversations, helping them with a little consulting and bringing their South by Southwest experience to market, it was clear that there was a real avenue for us to partner and build a real company around Doodles. And it's been remarkable ever since. It's been a ride, but it's been fun.
Doodles, I think, is one of the cutest NFT collections out there. I love the colors. I love everything about it. I've been following it for a long time. I don't have one, but I am a supporter of Doodles.
I love that.
From afar or up close. I guess up close today. What do you think makes a good brand? Obviously, Doodles being cute, having like a good color, good cartoon character, like atmosphere to it. But like that's possible for a lot of projects. So like I could go out tomorrow and hire a designer and create something that looks cute, but it's not maybe going to be successful, right? So like how do you see Doodles or other NFT collections that have had the same level of success really building out a brand that makes it appealing to, collectors, but then people like me who aren't, and they're also just like observing and they're like, yeah, that's adorable, or I love this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's like pretty simply authenticity and originality. And I think what you find in a lot of the Web3 space is that most projects don't really lead with art and brand, right? Like the art is kind of a wrapper to something else, which, is fine. And there's merit to that. But when I think the reason people love Doodles is because they see burnt toast through Doodles. It is burnt toast. It's his point of view. And we, like whenever you try and fit something into a box, it just doesn't really work narratively. And people can feel that. People can feel that it's not authentic. So what the team really tries to focus on is making the content as authentic as possible, making the brand as authentic as possible. And that ultimately becomes original. That's why people feel like they haven't seen Doodles before, even though they've seen pastel colors, even though they've seen the floating eye and like the kawaii culture. I think one of like the best examples of this is when we were doing our first kind of like sessions with Pharrell, and he was like, it's not that I haven't seen the colors, it's not that I haven't seen the style before.
Yeah.
I've just never seen it done like this.
Mm.
And if you can make people feel that time and time again, like they won't be able to look away. And I think that's one of the hallmarks that Doodles really brings to the world. And our art, the way we craft tweets, the way we engage our community, all of that stuff is like a statement about what we think and what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the community really feels that.
I like that. Obviously, Doodles is a part of the Web3 space. So with that comes the beauty of market volatility. Bear markets, bull markets, up and down. It's all fun, right? We're having fun here. But how do you kind of handle that volatility as a CEO of a massive NFT collection? Obviously, you have other activations, but what do you kind of do to navigate through like the bull and bear markets?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult because there are things that you want to chase. There are current metas that like, everybody is kind of like flocking towards, right? Mm-hmm. There's like energy that people try and pinpoint and just go after. And it's difficult to do that because if you do that constantly, you're never really kind of like building with consistency. Now, there's aspects of it that you have to, right? Like there are opportunities that are too big to miss. There are opportunities that, if you don't take, someone else will. But I think the way that you balance that is making sure that everybody feels and sees the vision long term. And if we are working towards that vision, everything that we say yes to or everything that we say no to will make sense. But and by the way, that's a lot easier said than done, right? Because like startups change, cultures change, spaces change. Like our space since 2022 has changed dramatically. So the idea is really just to try and make sure that everybody is grounded in the long term. So the market volatility, and it's so much easier said than done, affects you less and less. Mm-hmm. Like that's really the way we try and go about it, is really just like a long-term kind of lens on everything.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And I feel like also the brand activations you guys have had throughout the years, like to them, they don't know if crypto's up or down. They just like the look of Doodles. You know what I mean? So when it comes to these partnerships, how does that work for you? Do they reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? A mix? It's
a bit of both. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit of both. So we do get a fair amount of inbound requests to partner. There are brands that like are kind of dream partnerships for us that we reach out to. So it kind of works both ways. And the way that the most authentic and organic partnerships have worked is that, whether we reach out or they reach out, if we have a really good idea, it starts to form. And that's how McDonald's came together. It's how Adidas came together. It's how Crocs and G-Shock, all these things came together. And it was really like, here's a great idea. Here's a way that we can create content together. We can create digital experiences together. And they will be beneficial for both of our brands and both of our communities will enjoy them. And then you let like our creative team kind of do their work in creating an incredible campaign. And quite often we're blowing the brand away with what we're able to do being a 3-year-old company. And frankly, like even less than that, when you think about the infrastructure we've put in place in the last 2 years. So it does work both ways, but at the end of the day, it's always about like that organic kind of, we're both going to benefit from this. There's no forcing it. And by the way, we don't hit that every single time. Sometimes things feel a little bit more forced than others, and you learn and you pivot and you go from there. But yeah, like true collaboration, I think is the most important thing when you're trying to work with a partner.
Yeah. What would you say are some that you felt could have gone better?
That's putting me on the spot.
Hey, I love talking about like, hey, we did this, we could do better next time with that, or like it went well, but
I'll give you I'll give you one. We did probably one too many around the film. And so I'm not going to say like there was one that should have been different, but there was probably a lot of like when we went to market for Project Gray, we went to market almost like it was a feature film. So Dolesville and the Doodleverse premiered at the Toronto Film Festival, and we put a massive marketing campaign behind it. We launched our own like direct to consumer streaming thing on doodles.app. We did an Arizona partnership, a Rubik's Cube partnership, and an Adidas partnership. We obviously collaborated with artists. We did a big soundtrack around it. So for a period of like 2 or 3 months, our community was like, oh my God, over here. Oh my God, over here. Oh my God, over here. Not really maybe being able to relish in like how incredible or significant each one of these things would be just on their own. So we may have like diluted the overall thing because of how much we did, but it was a massive spectacle. It was a huge opportunity. It built our brand to heights that like are really kind of like unprecedented and even hard to measure. But I think it's now like after having done that experience, it's probably like, okay, is there a way we can space these things out a little bit more so they can live on their own? But that's probably the biggest learning from 2024. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. And what about on the flip side? What is one that you're like, we knocked this out of the park? This was amazing. I love this one. I always talk about this one.
I mean, it's hard to.
It's not a favorite. It's not picking favorites. It's just.
It's not. Yeah. It's just like McDonald's was. Yes. It's a dream come true for any brand. That kind of distribution is unprecedented. The way that it started was all about the art. That was so incredible because they were interested in us designing their holiday hot cups. So that's how it started. And then we started adding more of what we do to the collaboration. And it became this major thing that included original music, animated content, merchandise, digital collectibles, onboarding people to new wallets, like through purchasing things in the McDonald's app. Obviously the fact that our cups are in every single McDonald's in America, they're, still going to be there through early January. It's 110 million units. Like the scale of the partnership is, they only work with the biggest brands in the world. It's Sonic and Hello Kitty and, Mario Kart. Like it's just, it's a dream come true for anybody in like the collaboration, marketing and brand development space.
Yeah. Do you have the cup on you? Is it?
Yeah.
Do you go to McDonald's like on a daily basis right now?
Definitely do. And if
you're
they
like,
try
hey,
and
I'm the
pull
CEO of Doodles. They're like, yeah, the total's like $1.50, sir.
They had, they had some. One of the McDonald's I went to had they had some leftover inventory of their old kind of just like yellow McCafe cups, and I was like, excuse me, can I have the Doodles cups, please? And they're like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. But they knew what Doodles was. They knew. And they're, oh my gosh, they're so cute. So how do you kind of design? I know you have like a whole design team for this, but obviously like Christmas, winter, holiday was in mind for these.
Yes.
What do you think of when it comes to like, okay, McDonald's, we're making a cup and it's going to be around the holiday season. But what kind of elements do you think the team wants to implement that really like hones in on the Doodle image? As many of you know, the Ethereum ecosystem is vast, but it's still extremely fragmented. Are you tired of how complicated it is to move assets across different chains? I know personally, I am. So with that said, I want you to meet Across, the most reliable, fastest, and cheapest bridge in the Ethereum ecosystem. Across has over 15 billion bridged and 1.7 million users. It's making cross-chain transactions simpler for everyone. Its intent-based design means users will get lightning-fast transfers between Ethereum and L2s like Base, Arbitrum, and Optimism in seconds, not minutes. For users, it's seamless bridging. For developers, it's providing native cross-chain integration. Across Protocol is erasing boundaries and unifying Ethereum. Experience the future of unified crypto infrastructure at across.to. That's across.to. Catch you all there.
Yeah, it's hard for me to weigh in on how they do what they do and why they do what they do. To me, it all looks like magic, right? Like it's truly, it's hard for me to wrap my head around how a few of them can pick up a pencil and draw what they draw. It just doesn't register. And the cool thing about Doodles is like like Burnt Toast is one of the most remarkable creators in the world. And when we acquired Golden Wolf, who's the design and animation studio that does all of our content, we inherited a few wildly talented artists. And our team together, I believe, is probably the best creative studio in the world, especially for the modern way that stories are told on the internet, and the way that brands are designed and stylized and everything like that. So when they get a brief, what they put back is like you're not expecting it. Like there's never been once where we're like, okay, we're designing something for this brand, we're pitching something to this brand, or like this is a new product we're developing, and we get something back that's like, oh my God, like you're surprised every single time. That's how good they are. And I think they really try and understand like what we're trying to accomplish and how that makes, like what that means to them, what story they think they can tell through the visuals. And we also do original audio. We do a lot of our own writing. So the creative process is like very nuanced, but the final product is like, it's hard for people to really comprehend like how good this team actually is. In the case of McDonald's, it was kind of like, these are our holiday hot cups. Like, what would you do in your style to create a holiday hot cup? And then the team went away and built that. And that was the end result. After a couple rounds of feedback, it was fantastic. And then we got the opportunity, not only on the cups, but in content. Like we made a music video, we made a couple social shorts, and we made some merchandise. We got the opportunity to take their iconic characters like Grimace and the Hamburglar and create them in the Doodle style, which was so fun for everybody. And it was a really cool way to see those characters come to life. I
love that. What's the impact of like a partnership like that on Doodles, like for the brand, the business? I can imagine it's pretty big, but like, how do you measure a successful partnership, especially when it's like you're putting out over 100 million cups into like the hands of millions of Americans, What's the ROI for you guys aside from like exposure?
Look, exposure is the big part of it, right? Like, and so there's a couple things. One, we've gotten more signups for our platform in this time frame that we've been live with McDonald's by far than any other period in the history of the product. And it's a short history of the product, but just the sheer increase since we've been doing this partnership, because we're basically onboarding people through the McDonald's app, and I think it's like 35 million people a day use that app. A lot of those accounts are coming, back and signing up for a doodles.app account. And that alone is massive, because I think this is like, and it's not just massive for Doodles, it's massive for Web3, because these are wallet generation events. Like they're frictionless onboarding. So people aren't even always aware that they're creating a wallet. But the point is now that through Doodles, like they're on chain, which is very, very cool. So that's a massive one, just brand growth, like the social content development. And then the long tail, everyone's seeing that you worked with McDonald's when so many try and don't, and are not so lucky. The inbound that you start to get, the pick of the litter that you start to have, and the way that you can structure the terms of those deals moving forward changes when you hit the pinnacle, and McDonald's is the pinnacle. So the amount of inbound conversations that we've had and the amount of people that maybe were on the fence before, like just the kinds of business development opportunities that we have now are truly like accelerated because of this partnership. So there's a few ways that it benefits brand development, obviously, but it adds to the snowball in a really material way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I resonate with that. Like even with guests we bring on the show, it's like, oh, you had the Doodle CEO on. I want to come on, and it's like, oh, you didn't want to come on before, but,
Exactly. Exactly.
I definitely get that. And that's super exciting for you guys. You brought up the platform. What is on the Doodles platform that is now exposing the average non-Web3 user to? Like what can we get on there?
Yeah, so right now, Doodles.app is kind of like our all-encompassing website, and within it is the Doodles Studio, and that's really the platform I'm talking about. So the Doodles Studio is ultimately a digital identity platform. You can create an avatar for free, and then you could layer on digital wearables to kind of really outfit your digital identity, and you do it through the Doodles IP. We do partnership packs. So, there are Rubik's Cube wearables in there. There's Adidas wearables. There's McDonald's wearables. We make our own wearables that are kind of just from the minds of our creative teams and in the Doodle style specifically. So the whole idea is that there's a lot of like collecting fun in there. And then you use that avatar to communicate on the internet with your friends, to show off like some of the things that you had, to actually have fun around a campaign. And some of the features that are going to be rolling out in the next quarter here are being able to like trade with people directly in platform, being able to buy and sell directly in platform. So the studio is really like a collector's hub, but it is turning into so much more. It's really becoming a place for you to have your digital identity, for you to have collecting fun, and for you to ultimately like create gamified experiences around a brand, an IP, on chain, on the internet, and also a way to like really connect us way more deeply to our core community. So if you're a new person coming in, you're coming in through like the most frictionless way, which is, hey, we have this 20-minute short film that's only available here. Come check it out. And you're also going to get this free pack of wearables. Why don't you try out an avatar as well? Why don't you, like dress it up with the McDonald's, like if you're a McDonald's fan, let's say, put the McDonald's clothing on it and share that stuff with your friends after you watch the movie and kind of just dip your toe in. And then, maybe we don't keep everybody in that moment, but if they start to see us on social, if they go to McDonald's again, like it's just kind of the way this works. Like people have retention when you start to see this brand, and maybe you go back in at some point and start to learn a little more. Maybe you buy the merch. Like it's really just to get people curious and interested to learn more about the ecosystem and go further down the funnel. Because if you hit them right off the bat with like, Doodles is this iconic NFT collection.
Yeah, they're like, okay.
All these, it kind of goes over people's heads. Right. So we just try and like guide them through smoothly.
Yeah. That was a question I was going to ask. Maybe you just answered it. It's not like you like slap them in the face, like we're NFT collection doing XYZ in Web3. Like, do you kind of like bury that and let them see for themselves and then they could figure out later on? Because I don't see that as like a bad thing. Like if I'm explaining it to someone, I don't want to throw a million technical terms at them and their eyes glaze over and then they're like bored before I could even get them into it,
Yeah, exactly. And that's really more of what it is. It's not a bad thing at all. Like one of our favorite quotes is we got quoted by Fast Company around the McDonald's partnership. And it said, Doodles is becoming a somewhat impossible to find media company. It's almost as if Walt Disney grew up watching Adult Swim, trading crypto and copping drops. And we were like, oh my God, you understand us.
Yeah. That's actually a really good explanation. I like that.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And I think the whole we are an NFT project, like that is part of the culture too. And that is cool culture that people maybe don't understand yet. It's just you have to sometimes get people out of their own way because the term NFT is still like an allergic term to a lot of people in the normie world. And you don't want that to be like the thing that defines you in like, it's really like you market to different audiences differently. But at the end of the day, like, no, that's like a badge we wear on our chest. We're never going to shy away from that. We just want to like work people up to, kind of like, you want to work people up to the opportunity where they're not going to like get in their own way of understanding your brand because like, oh, that's an NFT project. Oh, that's just this crypto thing. Like, yeah, we're all those incredible things, but like, you don't even know what that means. So let us show you.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good way to put it, honestly. I feel like for some NFT projects, though, they just like stay as an NFT project and that's it. And that's okay. Like they only want to appeal to like the crypto community. But what is kind of your goal for Doodles to expand beyond, obviously expand beyond crypto, but where do you want it to really be?
Well, I think the thing about crypto and NFTs is that we believe that it's going to expand to everybody. So what we're trying to do is build bridges from crypto to, I guess I'll call it Web 2, and back and forth. But at the end of the day, like crypto is starting with finance and media and IP development to an extent, but there's going to be so many applications for blockchain technology and on-chain technology. Like it's the new internet. It's a better internet. It's an upgrade, and that's not going to like, it's not going to start and stop with Doodles and like what fans think of us as. So what we want to do is ultimately just build those bridges and be one of the biggest, or not even biggest, just one of the most authentic and entertaining and loved Web3 native brands in the world. And that will mean different things to different people. But at the end of the day, like we want to grow with crypto, and we want to take our core community with us to the masses in a way that they feel good about. I think that's like the key thing here is like, we don't want to sell out and like, hey, we worked within crypto, now we're just going here. Like the whole point is building a bridge, and these things happen in different steps. But at the end of the day, like, how do you get the world to see how special being an NFT project is? How do you get the world to see how special like being part of these communities are, and what this like new on-chain economy looks like, what this new internet looks like? And usually, and every massive entertainment company has used this playbook, but entertainment is a way to onboard people to new technology that they might not understand. And if you look at the way Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and all of these like even Duolingo, all these platforms develop, entertainment, brand development, and speaking to consumers in an entertaining way, that works, and it's never going to not work.
You brought up authenticity, and I'm curious, like, what is your definition of that in the context of like, you've gotten a partnership with McDonald's, it felt authentic for you guys to work with them. But what if like another McDonald's level company came to you and it had like no relation to you guys at all? How do you kind of navigate like saying yes and no to things that like, sure, you'd get like insane amount of exposure, but it wouldn't feel authentic?
We wouldn't do it, like we've been approached with things like that. Nothing to the scale of McDonald's. It's like, there's only like, maybe like
there's only a couple of McDonald's, aka McDonald's.
So like, but I'd say, no, first and foremost, the team really has to believe that it's going to make sense to the audience. And even if it's something that feels out of left field, if there's a really good idea, then that will prevail. If it's something we don't believe in, if it's something like that we think the community is not really going to be, we think they're going to reject it, even though it's going to help us get all these new fans, then it's not really worth doing in the long run. So we're pretty like, we're selective, but we're going to be even more selective in the future about the brands we work with, because every single time we do one of them, it says something about who we are, and we really care about that. So yeah, it really depends on, on kind of like what the team's passionate about and what they feel. And then sometimes like we go back and forth internally, like, no, this is great for us. No, it's not. I don't want to do this. We don't like this one. Like, and that's just all like healthy dialogue. That's kind of like helping us craft our narrative and the statements that we want to make.
So what brands do you want to work with? You don't need to say, you could say specifics, or like the type of brands. I don't know. I think do know. You do know.
Well, it's more like we want to do things that are unexpected. We want to do things that are authentic. And I think it's so hard to say like me personally, right? Like I would love to do something with Lego, because that's like the most iconic thing I could think of. Like there's so much nostalgia there. It's the coolest. It's like,
if you're listening, Lego. Yeah.
They are. Oh, they know who we are. They know who we are. But I think like apart from some of those like kind of just like Mount Rushmore collabs that every single brand and IP in the world want. It really just has to be something that's fresh and new and like statement worthy. And I think it's got to inspire the team, because and that's why it's so hard to say like exactly what we want to do, because what inspires us today might not inspire us a month from now.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's very fair. Okay, what about in 2025? What is on Doodles' roadmap for next year? What can we expect from you guys? Give us an idea or an answer.
Yeah. Okay. So 2024 was really about, showing the world and showing Web3 that we really did know how to bring some of the biggest brands, the biggest audiences, and real kind of like real world culture, like, music culture, entertainment culture, animation, obviously the big partnerships that we did, bring that stuff on chain and see that there's like really fun things to do in an on-chain economy with really cool digital products, et cetera. And I think we showed the world that with flying colors. We've been developing a lot of things in the background, some of which has shipped, but what you're going to see in the first part of 2025 is a lot of really Web3 native shipping, like just a ton of things that the crypto space really wants, the crypto space really cares about, and really like leaning into on-chain product content and, frankly, just strategy. So the first 6 months of the year is going to be like very, very crypto, very Web3 heavy.
Okay, very cool. I'm excited to see that. Last major thing, Julian, can you leave us with a piece of advice, something that you've carried with you throughout your time in this industry?
Yeah, it's something I've carried with me through my entire career, and it's just truly being nimble. I think the one thing that is guaranteed in the age that we're living in is change, and if you are too hard to move, you end up missing things, and you have to generate an ability to see around the corner a little bit and not be afraid to not just pivot, but to have an open mind about what is true and what is not true. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people say, well, that's the way we've always done things. It's like, that's the worst answer in the world, because that's almost assuredly the way you shouldn't be doing things. You will
sink the ship.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
So there needs to be a balance of like, okay, you need to work towards goals. If you move too often, like things can get out of control, but being nimble is really a superpower if you could figure out how to control it and get the most out of being able to maneuver. So growing a company and getting bigger while staying nimble is a big challenge, but I think it's something that all companies and frankly individuals that are building and trying to make it, really hit home with.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's great advice. Amazing. Well, Julian, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This was a fun one.
Yeah.